What we're going to take a look at is the sixth historical thinking skill of the course. Technically, it's called argumentation, but you can simplify it by saying how to write a thesis. So when we look at argumentation, develop an argument. That's the wording of it. That's the skill. Develop an argument. Sometimes we'll refer to it as a thesis, and sometimes we'll refer to it as making a claim. There's two types of assessments on which you will be asked to develop said argument. One is the document-based question, or the DBQ. The other is the long essay question, or the LEQ. When you make a thesis, or when you compose your argument, your claim, it will always be based on a prompt. The DBQ and the LEQ will each have prompts, which you'll have to make an argument to try and respond to, and then prove it with evidence. Now, the methodology which we are going to use is called the complex split thesis. When you use the complex split, it really increases the odds that what you are making is a legitimate argument. And it really allows your thesis, your argument, to take that clear-cut direction. When you use complex split, it is much more than a simple list, because a thesis has to be more than a list. It needs to be an argument which you are setting up. Now, when we use the complex split thesis, remember that it is just one complete sentence. That's it. One sentence that's placed at the end of your intro paragraph and then reworded at the beginning of your conclusion. Although if you don't have time to reword it at the beginning of the conclusion, that's okay, but definitely at the end of your intro paragraph. You need to include all parts of the prompt. So the time period must be there, general specific examples of the topic at hand, and then you need to apply the action verb. Apply the action verb. Usually that verb has been evaluate, which means it needs to be a deeper, more nuanced, more academic style argument. The two magic words with this complex split thesis are although and ultimately. Although will be the first word, and ultimately will be in the middle. So this will gain you that argumentation point. It'll guarantee that you have a thesis, because everything after the word although, but before the word ultimately, is the counter argument. And this gives credit to an additional point of view. It gives credence to the fact that there's another perspective that exists. Anything after the word ultimately sets up the main argument. This is your argument. You're acknowledging that although there's another point of view, ultimately this is the direction that the thesis will go. So if we take the example of topic 1.1 and learning objective 1C, a prompt that's based off of this topic and objective would look something like this. Develop an argument that evaluates one or more effects of technological innovation on the Chinese economy circa 1200 to circa 1450. So that action verb, evaluate. What general specifics do we need? Well, we need technological innovation. Specifically, effects. Effects of it. And the time frame. This is the first and second unit, circa 1200 to circa 1450. So it's best, when faced with a prompt, to sketch out what you want to put down. Then you compose the thesis. Although the introduction of champa rice from Vietnam increased the population of Song China, ultimately the increase in steel and porcelain production more drastically affected China's economy from circa 1200 to circa 1450. I have although, there's general specifics, there's a time frame. More drastically, you can't just say it affected the economy. More drastically, or had a greater effect, because you're comparing it to that counter argument that you made after the word although and before ultimately. So when it comes to a complex split thesis, this is the method we will use to make arguments that will be on the DBQs and the LEQs.